A memo that was provided to the board for the May meeting on the 5 properties on Gilmore was forwarded to Union Township, discussed at their June 20th meeting, as Michelle briefed us on. And same with the RACW LSA grant. We had correspondence, Pcsa and myself, with RACW reps. We conveyed the same to Union Township. They discussed it at their June 20th meeting. Those two, for that topic being a letter from Union Township to our RACW stating Pcsa will not be completing the project, and the alternative from grinder pumps to gravity sewers.
So that has been done, that letter's been written?
I believe, based on Mr. Seiler's.
Just know the motions were.
Okay, so I don't know, we have our touch and go with Bankson next week.
Okay.
We'll get an update then, I hope. Alright, continuing on Finleyville Rama, Tanya, do you wanna bring up the low slope exhibit?
Is this the thing you passed out?
Yes, so we handed out, schedule update in 2 exhibits at the beginning of this meeting. We're gonna flip from the schedule to the second page, the first exhibit.
That may be my mistake, it may not be up there. You gave it to me, but now I think I forgot to download it.
To download it.
I'm sorry, I could do that now if you guys want.
Let's just stick with the hard copy.
Okay.
So the first exhibit is the updated schedule, right? 2 very much different than what we talked last week, or last month rather.
So you say updated, do you have sort of the baseline, your original? I'm just thinking about how things changed, so we can keep track of how things have changed.
Yeah, we do, it's a different tab on a different spreadsheet. The
Oh, so
end
this is
date
on-
hasn't changed.
Okay,
We can compare,
well, maybe for the next update, you just have another column on the left, that's sort of what the baseline
Yep.
schedule was and what the current schedule is.
so just wanted to review that with the board.
What makes that Act 537 study special?
That's a DEP, definition that a special study is only related to a portion of a municipality. Whereas a normal Act 537 plan would encompass the entire boundary of the municipality. So they just call them special studies that deal with certain areas.
Okay, thank you.
And that's underway, that's our next big task. That we're gonna complete a draft in July. Sit down with Union Township in August, review that, and then, move forward with the review with the property owners, things like that, and advance the 537 plan. So one of the key elements is there's 2, obviously going with the gravity lift station alternative. Last week, we reviewed our recommended location of the lift station, which is, this blue line at the bottom of the service area, okay? And
It
then
says
there's,
proposed FER lift station property?
yes,
Okay.
yes. And initially, at the outset, there was one, alternative for the force main, and that was at the top of Finleyville Road. And we're calling that alternative number 1.
So how would that work? That's not, is that gravity flow?
This
That's
is,
not-
this is
No,
the
no, no.
lift station.
So the lift station, all of the properties
Oh,
were
fine.
drained by gravity to the lift station.
Yeah.
And then the lift station would pump it back up to the top of the hill.
Oh, I got it, okay. The lift station, your recommendation is to stay with the lift station where you have it?
Yes.
And these are just the 2 alternatives for where we would tie into the.
Correct. The initial alternative was along Finley Rama Road.
Right.
To the top of our gravity system. The second alternative that we most recently discussed was the less costly, the shorter route connecting it into what I'll call the Veronica Victoria collection system.
So how would you, connect from the lift station to that alternative two? Would that be a straight line through that property?
No, it would go up a piece along Gilmore Road and then try to hug a property line, to get back to
Okay,
manhole 39-101.
yeah, thank
Try to go along the property line as much as possible.
you. Yeah, thank you.
And so one of the key elements in a question that DEP is going to ask is, what are the capacities of the downstream sewers? Okay? And, this area, was sewered by the Peach Creek Sewer Authority in the early 1990s. We pulled the record drawings from BCM, who was the engineers at the time, and there were several line segments that had lower slopes than are typically comfortable. And I think we reviewed that a little bit last month rather. DEP sewerage manual, which follows the national 10 state standards, the minimum slope on an 8-inch diameter sewer is 0.4%, which that's identified at the top of the page, which translates to, that's your part area.
0.5% is 1/16 of an inch fall over a foot run
Okay.
for our plumber.
Okay, so these ones that say 0.29 and 0.33, they're below the standard.
They're below the current standard. They were installed before the standard existed. Okay? There's really no magic in the 0.4% grade. That's the grade at which solids start dropping out of the water. And so,
Got a question for you about that though.
yeah,
On that standard, you're looking at a standardized flow coming from say a toilet which has toilet paper and solids going down it.
Mhm.
When you go through a lift station, you got a grinder, basically you're just pumping a slurry through there.
correct. Yeah.
So the solids and the paper and all that's technically not gonna be in there.
Well, there's still solids in there that'll settle out.
Yeah.
But I guess my point is that,
There's less than a 1/16 of an inch slope on some of these?
yes,
For every foot run.
yes,
Oh, that's almost perfectly level.
it's very flat.
Yeah.
And we don't have a problem up there currently, no complaints.
Yeah.
My thinking is that connecting the force main at 39-101 would help with some of the solids
Clean.
deposition, would help clean it.
Because of the increased flow.
Because the increased flow. Our lift station's gonna discharge about 80 gallons per minute when it kicks on. So not an extremely higher flow. Gas pump, if you will, when you're pumping your gas tank, is about 10 gallons per minute. Okay, just to give you some relevant. So discharging at 39-101 will help keep the solids from depositing. But when it's discharging, our flow rates are gonna go up from about a 1/2 inch to about half pipe to 4 inches.
So stated differently, the flow going through those pipes is normally about you're saying an inch, or they're cut in
Roughly.
half.
Yeah.
With
Water.
8-inch pipe, the water level would just be 1 inch from the bottom. You're saying when this thing kicks on, it's gonna be half full.
Yeah, it'll be 4 inches from the bottom. Okay?
Because you need larger pipe.
Well, even if you went to larger pipe, you'd still have a minimum grade. And I still think a 10-inch pipe, these would be a lower minimum grade. So we can pursue continuing to connect at alternative 2. The state likely won't fit the concept of cleaning our sewers out with our new lift station between their ears. They'll say, what's the limiting capacity? We'll show them model findings, we're not gonna create a problem. We'll show them the calculations, the capacity exists. They're going to struggle with, our existing system has slopes that are below their criteria. They're gonna struggle with it.
What's the cost difference between the two alternatives?
The linear footage to run the force main from the proposed lift station property to alternative number 1 is roughly 2,300 linear feet. To do from the lift station property to alternative number 2, it's 230 linear feet. So it's 1/10.
So about 2,000 times 75. That's the cost differential.
Does DEP have the same criteria for whether it's normal plumbing or whether it's slurry with a grinder?
Yes.
And it's the same, okay.
So, getting back to your question, it's about $150,000 more to go up to the top of the hill. You'll get a permit faster, and candidly, Eric's in the process of pulling the record drawings for, the manholes from 3977 to 3969. But just driving the roadway, those pipes are pretty steep. We're gonna follow up, but I don't anticipate any low slope segments in that run. Alternative 1, I think, is quicker to permit. It'll get us to our end date that's on our project schedule quicker. I don't think it will change the hydraulics dramatically, but since we don't have a problem up in the Veronica, Victoria area, if you're looking for our recommendation, we pump to the top of the hill.
No,
Alternative 1.
Was that was the cost for the estimate that you incorporate that cost when we figured out sort of the worst case cost for the whole project?
That was in the MOU.
This alternative 2 was an opportunity to potentially save some money.
Yes, yes, and so before we keep going down the road, wanted to have this discussion with the board. And again, under the concept, we don't have a problem up there now, don't wanna create one after the fact. Wanted the board to weigh in on, going back to alternative 1. We'll certainly spend more than $150,000 replacing the red lines that are on this page. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pipes. 5 pipes that are less than 0.4% grade. Certainly a heck of a lot more than $150,000 to upgrade those to 10 inches. So that's our thoughts. Want to run that by the board, get the boards, we've been talking about this alternative 2. Our recommendation to revert back to alternative 1.
So, go ahead.
So you're basically saying that the pipes shown in red are gonna have to be replaced,
Potentially.
if we go with alternative 2.
And I guess if we build the Finley O. Ramo Road, the lift station, and connect the force main there, if we have a problem, then we may have to do something with those pipe slopes. Either figure out a way to increase those slopes to find grade somewhere, or increase the pipe diameters, which would be a bigger fight with the department, because then in a lot of these cases, we'd be running a 10-inch diameter pipe into an existing 8-inch just because it has a larger slope.
So some of the short distances, you said find slope, you may not be able to find slope, right?
Correct. Yeah. Meaning we'd have to say from 3989.
Yeah.
Take it to 39,108 if it's down over the hill and kind of, run it at a higher grade.
Yeah, okay. All right.
But at the end of the day, for the cost differential, kind of keeps leading back towards discharging at 3969.
Jim, you have any thoughts on this? I think this was your idea at one point.
Yeah, it was, but, I don't know, it's up to the DEP, they're the ones that make the rules and regulations and allow the slopes and don't allow the slopes.
But you said 1/16 of an inch is flat, or less than 1/16 of an inch per foot.
Yeah, less than 1/16. A 16th, even in a residential home, you're allowed a 16th of an inch if you put a 6-inch sewer in your house. On a 4-inch, they want you a 1/4 inch, but a 16th, they want you to go to 6-inch. Now, the only thing that I see with this, and I find this on residential homes as well, is a lot of these flow rates and stuff were calculated on the old days when they had 3.5 gallon toilets and stuff. Now that you have 1.6 gallon toilets, I have more problems with homes with 6-inch sewers than I do with 4-inch sewers. Because a smaller sewer has a better cleansing action, and it pushes everything down the sewer if it's a smaller pipe. Every time you increase the pipe and you use the same amount of flow, you get less cleansing action, and I actually have more problems and more clogged sewers with bigger 6-inch sewers than I do smaller 4-inch. So what he originally said, when you take that pump and you discharge from the pumping station, it actually would wash out like in these low slope areas that have, say, paper and solids sitting in it. When you take and you gush a couple hundred gallons down there, it would practically cleanse and clean the sewers if you ask